As Chief Faculty Marshal, I now declare this inauguration officially open. Please remain standing for the national anthem led by Dr. Christopher Swanson, Associate Professor of Music. Please remain standing for the opening reflection, words from 1976 by W. Taylor Reveley II, then President of Hampden-Sydney College, read by Dr. Larissa Ferguson, Associate Professor of History.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stars and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave a proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Is there a proper time for a celebration of beginnings? All cultures have treasured their beginnings, and in ritual and reflection have returned to watershed events in their own histories to celebrate the continued worth of these beginnings. Everyone loves the new. The first flower of spring and the first snow of winter bring annual excitement and joy. Who cannot recall the thrill of seeing a little baby, of finding a new friend? Assuredly, we cannot be leaders in today's world and blindly hang on to the past. The past can be time's dead hand clutching the present to mold it like itself. It can be forgotten, but the past must be a spring from which flow life and vitality. Make our present a past which brings fulfillment to the future.
Please be seated. We are fortunate to have here with us today, among many dignitaries, our former president, Henry Willett, and also fortunate to have with us President Christopher Howard of Hampden-Sydney College, our neighboring institution, founded in 1775. Thank you, President Willett and President Howard. At this time, I would also like to recognize the member of Longwood's governing body, the Board of Visitors, seated here. Ms. Mary Ann Radcliffe, Rector, Dr. Judy Lynch, Mr. Ronald O. White, Dr. Edward Gordon, Mr. Stephen L. Mobley, Ms. Colleen Margoloff, Mr. Thomas Johnson, Mr. Brad Schwartz, Ms. Shelby Walker, Mr. Lacey Ward, Jr., and the Honorable Robert W. Wirtz, Jr. Please join me in showing them appreciation for their countless hours of service on behalf of Longwood University. We also extend our prayers and regards to Mrs. Jane Maddox of the Board of Visitors. Mrs. Maddox chaired the national search for our new president, along with Professor of English Derek Taylor, vice chair of the committee. This fall, Mrs. Maddox was diagnosed with lymphoma and is fighting hard with good prospects. We know her prayers and regards are with us on this afternoon, and we send all our best to her. It is now my privilege to introduce to you the Honorable Gerald H. Baliles, who will preside over this ceremony, the 65th Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia and an honorary alumnus of Longwood University, having been conferred an honorary doctorate in 1986 for outstanding merit in public service during his career and administration. Governor Baliles.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be with you here today as Longwood, Virginia's third oldest public university, celebrates its 175th anniversary year and inaugurates its new president. It is a doubly special ceremony for me as an honorary alumnus. Allow me to lay the foundation for this occasion today. The pursuit of public education at all levels is a particularly American idea, especially the conviction that educational opportunity must be universally available and that educational excellence must be consistently sought. There is a reason for this. We profoundly believe in the democratic ideal, the Jeffersonian notion that men and women, by the sheer force of education, can so enlighten themselves that representative government will transcend its limitations. In other words, we believe in the idea of progress. We believe that by the power of our own minds, we will make our society advance indefinitely into the future. For us, progress means an endless stream of human creativity and imagination, combined with a sustained desire for improvement. So on the one hand, our hopes and aspirations are idealistic. Yet, on the other hand, we have found a pragmatic means for achieving our most noble collective and individual ambitions. It is higher education. We make a simple and direct assumption. Education is good and necessary. It is a prerequisite, a preface to our finest achievements. It is upon that assumption that Virginia has invested heavily over the years and sought to build a system of public education that aspires to more than mere adequacy. Our system seeks excellence. At Longwood, this university has been an example of that aspiration. And at Longwood, today is an historic occasion. In the centuries of higher education in America, there are notable fathers and sons who have each in turn led different colleges and universities. The direct succession of 3 generations at major institutions, however, so far as I know, is unprecedented. The fact that 2 Taylor Reveleys now serve contemporaneously is all the more remarkable. I came to know Taylor Reveley II during his tenure at Hampden-Sydney while I was a young member of the Virginia House of Delegates. Taylor Reveley III is a dear friend, and we spent many years together as law partners following my administration as governor. Then he joined William and Mary, first as dean of the law school, before then becoming president. And the president we celebrate now, Taylor Reveley IV, and I worked together every day for a decade prior to joining you this summer. The Washington Post recently called this succession of Reveleys Virginia's academic dynasty. In the Chronicles of the Commonwealth, Taylor Reveley is a name that will long connote strength of character and mind. On behalf of our colleagues at the University of Virginia, the Commonwealth's second oldest public university, I can tell you how fortunate Longwood is. Taylor IV and I at UVA's Miller Center, and before that at Hunt and Williams, have worked with many of the country's leading figures on many of the greatest governance challenges America faces. The vexing challenges of debt and deficits, foreign policy in Asia with the rise of China, transportation policy at home, the shifting landscape of journalism, the war powers of the President and the Congress, to name just several. He and I have always felt that the country's greatest challenge is higher education. We have focused so much effort on that through the years, with leading figures as well. It has been the constant thread throughout the years of our work together. These questions, for example. How does a free society sustain itself and advance, but through education? What is the role of liberal arts in the 21st century? How can costs be allocated and structured to maintain and propel this vital public good? That Taylor is in a powerful position to give practical care to these issues in the progression of Virginia's academic dynasty gives me powerful optimism. He thinks in the broad sweeps of time, with the currents of history and trends of the future naturally at play in his considerations and in his decisions. As befits a classicist and theologian, he is also mindful of philosophical principle and consequence, as well as the merits and fair treatment of each individual and circumstance. As befits a seasoned attorney, he understands governance and finance utterly and lucidly. And as a Reveley, perhaps this passes in the blood, he has a delightful and powerful command of the language. Setting the course requires reducing ideas to actionable words. Above words and ideas, as befits an old football player, Taylor also simply works like an animal and gets things done. Having worked with governors, senators, and U.S. secretaries of state to bring issues into clarity for U.S. presidents, Taylor at heart relishes simply being of help and doing good. We started our work together a decade ago, laboring to bring public higher education to Martinsville, Virginia, which has the highest unemployment rate in the state. We succeeded with the founding of the New College Institute, with which Longwood has become so involved. Taylor likewise devoted enormous time to Virginia Intermont College in Bristol, so many of whose students come from modest but inspiring circumstances in Appalachia. 1,000 things, including family ties, have drawn Taylor and Longwood together. I know that Longwood's strength in transforming lives is what has drawn Taylor here the most. So we will inaugurate a president today. And under new President Reveley, Longwood will indeed be at the forefront of the next chapter in higher education in this country in the 21st century. And that is good for Longwood, for the Commonwealth, and for the country. And now let's turn to the rest of the program. In a moment, I will introduce Secretary Fornash, who brings greetings from the Commonwealth. We will then hear greetings from others in the Longwood community. W. Taylor Reveley III will offer his own reflections prior to the installation by Rector Mary Ann Radcliffe and our new president's inaugural address. Secretary of Education Laura Fornash, in her tenure, has provided guidance to the 16 Virginia's public universities, the Virginia Community College system, 5 higher education and research centers and institutes, the Department of Education, and Virginia's state-supported museums. She was appointed by Governor Bob McDonnell in 2011, and as a member of the governor's cabinet, plays a leading role in the development and implementation of the Commonwealth's education policy. Virginia is rightly and widely noted for having the best system of higher education in America. So please welcome Secretary Fornash.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Governor Baliles, for that kind introduction. I am delighted to be here today on behalf of Governor Bob McDonnell, and I'm honored to participate in the formal installation of Mr. W. Taylor Reveley IV as the 26th president of Longwood University. Over the past 6 months, the governor and I have enjoyed getting to know President Reveley, and I'm not sure if he received hands-on training from his father or if it was just his instinct, but President Reveley knew to come to Richmond in the first few weeks of his tenure to begin educating us on the priorities of Longwood University. And that means asking for money. I was impressed with his quick sense of the opportunities of the student and the regions where focus was needed to ensure that students who begin their education at Longwood complete their degrees and find opportunities to serve this and other communities. With his diverse background and family ties to the institution and region, President Reveley brings experience, knowledge, and passion for building academic success, for strengthening the university's role in the regional economy. It takes a strong, innovative leader, and I should probably also add a good fundraiser, to become a college president in the 21st century. President Reveley is the ideal candidate to lead the university through the challenges facing higher education in the state and in the nation. He has enjoyed a front row seat as Longwood has grown from a college into a university and serves to inspire and enable students to make positive changes in the Commonwealth, nation, and world. In 2014, Longwood University will celebrate its bicentennial. That's 175 years of developing citizen leaders. From your humble beginnings in 1839 as the Farmville Female Seminary Association, fast forward 175 years and 6 name changes to where we stand today on this beautiful campus we now know as Longwood University. As one of the oldest public higher education institutions in the Commonwealth, Longwood has played an integral role in providing access to post-secondary education for thousands of Virginia citizens. As you may know, increasing access to higher education has been a hallmark of the McDonnell administration through a partnership with the General Assembly, the business community, and our public and private higher education institutions. Governor McDonnell often says, to get a good job, you need a good education. Every Virginian deserves the opportunity to access higher education and pursue their dreams. In the summer of 2011, Governor McDonnell signed the Top Jobs legislation that puts the Commonwealth on a path to awarding 100,000 more degrees over the next 15 years and making reformed-based investments to higher education to ensure that it is affordable and accessible to all students. Additionally, it focused on preparing our students for the high-demand, high-income fields of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and healthcare. Just over 2 years later, I am thrilled to report that Virginia is going to meet this goal ahead of schedule, thanks in part to programs and initiatives at Longwood University. President Reveley has a strong vision for Longwood that will lead this university to an even brighter future and will ensure we meet the Commonwealth's goals for higher education. I know President Reveley will build an environment where students, faculty, and staff can thrive, where knowledge meets curiosity, where innovation meets application, and where talent meets opportunity. In closing, we look forward to working with President Reveley, Rector Radcliffe, and the faculty and staff. Today is a day to celebrate a new chapter in the history of this very special university. And I am so honored to be here today with you to play a small part in this exciting day. Again, congratulations, President Reveley.
Thank you, Secretary Fornash. We will now hear greetings to President Reveley on this Inauguration Day from Mr. Bob Berger, President of the Longwood Foundation Board, who will be followed by Ms. Kathleen Early, class of 1992 and president of the Longwood Alumni Board, Mr. Stephen Summer, class of 2014 and vice president of the Longwood Student Government Association, Mrs. Allison Dobson, class of 2011 and co-chair of the Longwood Staff Advisory Committee, and Mr. David Lear, chairman of the Longwood Faculty Senate. We will begin with Mr. Berger.
Governor Baliles, distinguished guest, both Presidents Reveley, and ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure to be a part of this event at Longwood today as we celebrate the inauguration of the 26th president of this great institution in its 175th year. Just as many of you here, my family has very deep-rooted ties to Longwood. My Aunt Libby was a professor of natural science for 38 years, and she often brought both my sister and me with her to campus on many occasions, whether it was to meet with students, to take swimming lessons here, to attend hockey games that she refereed, to go on astronomy field trips up at Longwood Golf Course. That was one of our favorite things to do. And the list goes on and on. My mother was a graduate and loved working in the library here for almost 20 years. My wife Linda is a 72 grad, as are several more family members. All of us have seen the incredible contributions that Longwood has made to the local economy, to this community, and how it has enhanced the quality of life for this entire region. And I know all of us are very proud of the tremendous strides that Longwood University has made in turning out citizen leaders year after year after year. On each return visit to campus as a member of the Longwood Foundation Board, I am always amazed to learn about the new programs that are going on here and to witness firsthand the excitement of our students and our faculty as they describe these programs to us. So I take great pride in welcoming you on this, another momentous occasion in Longwood's rich history. And on behalf of the Longwood Foundation Board, I welcome you, President Reveley, and I pledge to you my support and that of the Foundation as we continue to work together for the good of this great university that we all love. Thank you.
President Reveley, as president of the Alumni Association, I'm representing 32,000 alumni and welcoming you as the 26th president of Longwood University. Alumni share a very special bond to our university. Past generations of students, like your grandmother, great-grandmother, and aunts, have provided opportunities for future generations to succeed. They have laid a foundation for the strong university we have today. Since you started in June, it is very evident that you place great value on alumni and alumni relations. We are all looking forward to working with you to preserve the proud history of our 175-year-old institution and helping accomplish our alma mater's vision of developing citizen leaders to strengthen all of our communities. President Reveley, on behalf of the alumni body, we welcome you, our new First Lady Marlowe, and your children, Quentin May, to Longwood. Congratulations.
When asked to welcome President Reveley to Longwood, I thought about how to best describe his impact moving forward with the university. Since meeting him last year during the presidential search, I think that former SGA Vice President Brian Reed described our president best, saying, "He just gets it." While this may be his first year at Longwood, President Reveley understands what it means to be a Lancer. He understands the pride we take in academic integrity through the honor code that every student pledges to abide by in their first days on campus. He knows from his ties to the area the important relationship that Longwood shares with the Farmville community. And his love for Longwood spirit may be unmatched, as he's immersed himself in beloved Longwood traditions from Convocation to Color Wars. With his wealth of knowledge in the field of higher education and his vision on how to best serve the students, President Reveley brings a new excitement and energy to Longwood's campus, one that I am confident will continue to move the university towards a brighter future. Thank you.
Honored guests and fellow Lancers, it is with incredible pride that I stand before you today at the inauguration of Longwood's 26th president, W. Taylor Reveley IV. As co-chair of the Staff Advisory Committee and on behalf of Longwood's selfless classified, wage, and AP staff, I would like to officially welcome you, President Reveley, to our beloved university. Thousands have passed through the Longwood University halls, gifted scholars, dedicated administrators, and loyal staff members. Those of us who work at Longwood know how very fortunate we are. We enjoy many of the institution's traditions and are well versed in the benefits and responsibilities that come from the university's collaborative nature. We know regardless of your role on campus, you have a voice and are part of a community where ideas flourish and voices are heard. President Reveley, the staff recognizes the effort that you have put into being open and accessible, and for this we are thankful. As you assume the role of Longwood University President, we pledge to you our support. With your leadership, we look forward to advancing Longwood University through what promises to be an exciting and fulfilling future for all. Thank you.
Greetings. It's tempting at formal events such as this to make grandiose proclamations about the future. As well-meaning and sincere as they are, to me they seem a bit premature, particularly at events such as this that mark a beginning of a new era. I'd like to avoid such statements and focus instead on what I've and other faculty have seen over these past few months. During this time, I've had several opportunities to work with President Reveley. The first occurrence demonstrated his open-door policy nicely. My request for a few minutes of his time led to over an hour's worth of discussion in which his passion for big ideas, keen intellect, level-headedness, and vision were on full display. And as productive as those meetings were, I enjoyed immensely our more casual conversations, where his humor and good-naturedness shone through. I'm not alone. In just the past week, I've had 3 other faculty members share with me the exact same experience. So President Reveley has made it very difficult for me to keep my promise and not pronounce to you all that Longwood is about to embark on a path of immense prosperity and opportunity, even though that is exactly what I think. On behalf of the faculty, I enthusiastically welcome President Taylor Reveley IV, Longwood University's 26th president. Thank you.
We will now hear reflections from a proud father, W. Taylor Reveley III, president of William and Mary, the Commonwealth's oldest public university and the second oldest institution of higher education in the nation, dating along with Harvard to the 17th century. This is a day when we are mindful of history. Mr. Reveley.
Thank you, Governor. Well, friends and family, the Governor and the program both say my mission is reflections, so I shall reflect. In 4 ways, 4 quick ways. First, there are happy similarities between William and Mary and Longwood. Both were born private and only later became public. Both have suffered the perils of Pauline at various points in their long lives, and both have stood the test of time. William and Mary, now in its 321st year, has a special fondness for institutions like Longwood, institutions that enjoy the distinction and the dignity of serious longevity, that have the elegance and the grace of history and tradition, and that remain firmly committed to the liberal arts in an era oblivious often to the centrality of the liberal arts, to understanding the human condition, and educating leaders of compelling ability. Second, Longwood is very dear to my family. My maternal grandmother, whom I adored, was an alumna of Longwood, as were her 3 daughters, all of whom I also adored, one my mother, 2 my aunts. One of my aunts later served on Longwood's Board of Visitors. My grandmother and her husband, Tom Eason, fell in love when he was teaching biology at Longwood, and she was teaching nearby. A generation later, my parents fell in love when Mother was at Longwood and Daddy was at Hampden-Sydney. 100 years ago, Longwood's class of 1913 made my grandfather an honorary member of the class. What an amazing coincidence. Really perfect to the occasion. Exactly 100 years thereafter, 1 century later, Tom Eason's great-grandson becomes president of Longwood. I grew up literally awash in stories about Longwood and Hampden-Sydney. And when my parents came back to this part of the world in 1963, 50 years ago, for Dad to become president of Hampden-Sydney, all these stories came vibrantly back to life. All in all, it's positively incestuous. Third, it's always fun to see one of the offspring go into the family business. And being Taylor Reveley does these days seem to entail becoming president of a school in Virginia. When son Taylor was picked by Longwood, I did say to him that he needed to start using his numeral, the 4, since I, another variant of Taylor Reveley, am still alive and kicking, and am already accustomed to being openly and notoriously known as Taylor Reveley. And while without question, son Taylor is much bigger, younger, better looking, I got here first. And anyway, I'm prone from time to time to say outrageous things that he wouldn't want people to think had slipped off his innocent young tongue. Fourth reflection. Parents as a species have all sorts of advice for their children that they really, really want to impart. But once the kid leaves the nest, parents learn it's better, as a rule, simply to stuff it, to keep it to themselves. Thus, I have tried not to share any advice with President Reveley simply because he's my child. But every now and then he does ask for my thoughts about one thing or another. And when he was thinking about whether it made sense to want to be a college president, he asked me what the job's like. And so I said, it's a wonderful job if you believe in the school you're leading. When you get up in the morning and peer in the mirror, you don't have to wonder whether what you're going to do that day matters. You know it's going to matter. The only question is for good or for ill. And when you are, in fact, at the top of your game, you can do serious good for an important institution. You can help it seize its opportunities, surmount its difficulties, rise to ever greater heights. You're rarely bored because the pot is always boiling, and you're certainly given every opportunity to work like a dog. The job's relentless. Like the Energizer Bunny, it just goes on and on. And this does remind me of the college president who was really feeling the pressure, found himself under a lot of stress. He called a wise friend and asked, how do I get some relief? The friend urged him to start running 10 miles a day. A month later, the president called his friend back to say running 10 miles a day had worked wonders, no more stress. So the friend asked, well, how's the job going? How's the college doing? And the president replied, well, I don't know. I'm 300 miles from the campus. Longwood, your 26th president might run 10 miles a day, but it'll be around the campus. And Taylor's mother and I and his siblings are very proud of him. We're also very proud of Marlo. She and the twins will join him in being wonderful additions to the Longwood family. And I must say, Longwood House is in for quite a ride. And to Longwood's 26th president, congratulations and paternal best wishes from the 27th president of William and Mary, who also celebrates you in memory of the 18th president of Hampden-Sydney. I believe you're the right person for the job at this particular moment in Longwood's long life. So keep doing your level best for this grand old institution.
The rector of Longwood University, Marianne M. Radcliffe, of the class of 1992, devoted alumna, public servant, and noted expert in the public affairs and public policy of the Commonwealth, will now lead the installation of the new president. Madam Rector, I know this is a proud moment for you as well.
It is now my pleasure to begin the formal installation of W. Taylor Reveley IV. There is a great deal of pressure in choosing a leader. The closer you are to the decision-making, the greater the pressure. It's not like taking a test, although it tests you. And it's unlike running a marathon, but at times it requires that level of perseverance. And it's very different than choosing between door number 1 and door number 2. The pressure is not intense due to the brevity of time you have to make the decision. Rather, the length of time your decision will have impact. Our consultant told the search committee that if we made the right choice, no one would remember us in a year. But that if we made the wrong one, they would never forget us. I am pleased today that we are headed for obscurity. This was not a difficult choice. I suppose the politic thing in some circles would be to say that it was, but that would be untrue. One by one, we reached clarity on this outcome. We got there in very different ways. It was a microcosm of the process the campus and the community have gone through with Taylor and will continue to go through. The great thing about that type of journey is that it renders a destination that is very authentic when you arrive. Maybe it's because of the manner in which he listens. It could be because with him, almost nothing goes without notice, in a world where that is very rare. Some were struck by his reflective understanding of the value of a liberal arts education, or the meaning of the words citizen leader. The first time he entered the room with us, there was a sense of calm. I felt it in that room, I felt it within myself, and I have observed it during each interaction with Taylor since that day. We are all in a hurry. Taylor's not. He has a vision. He holds the long view in a way that is unparalleled. It is something he can articulate and illustrate in such a manner that at times you can almost physically see it. His interview with the Board of Visitors was something that, in retrospect, we wish we had recorded. His deep understanding of our questions and his answers, punctuated by his infectious laughter, had a very special quality. The immediate relationships and trust transcended the time and place, providing comfort that the aptness of this leader would endure. He doesn't have all the answers. There are no panaceas in higher education today, as they say. We are all going to have to work together to navigate the waters ahead and work hard. But to really succeed, you have to know who you are and what you aspire to be. From the very beginning, he understood us. And somewhere, deep down, he was already a part of us. Our patron saint, Joan of Arc, has a very famous, often abbreviated quote attributed to her. "I am not afraid, for God is with me. I was born for this." Now that quote is a little bit melodramatic if you are not a woman leading men into battle in 15th century France. But sometimes there is a sense of knowing someone is meant for something. That is a real and tangible notion that I have never witnessed before, and I'm not certain I will ever see again. Right now, right here, this is a big job. It touches so many lives. People who remain here and broaden minds and prepare students for the future, their own future, our future, and people who leave here and go out and do the same thing in thousands of other places, touching the hearts and minds of our smallest citizens and our oldest, and thousands in between, in ways no marketing flyer or website or statistic can possibly capture. It's something you have to have inside you. It's something that lives in our faculty and our staff, and it lives in Taylor Reveley. This can be our moment. It's up to all of us. The time has arrived that we need to turn toward the future. We need to grasp that while honoring our history and traditions, we can begin to see what is before us. Now we must focus on what we are capable of achieving and of what we are being called to do together. President Reveley, will you come forward and join me next to the podium? Taylor Reveley, the Board of Visitors has chosen you as president of Longwood University. Yours will be the privilege and responsibility of leading Longwood University to the fulfillment of her great promise for years to come. Please repeat after me. I, Taylor Reveley, do solemnly swear
I, Taylor Reveley, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully commit myself to the mission of Longwood University,
that I will faithfully commit myself to the mission of Longwood University,
that I will serve the Commonwealth of Virginia with integrity, vision, and wisdom,
that I will serve the Commonwealth of Virginia with integrity, vision, and wisdom,
and that I will uphold the values and traditions of the university
and that I will uphold the values and traditions of the university
and the laws of the Commonwealth
and the laws of the Commonwealth
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
I'd like to ask my fellow officers of the board, Dr. Judy Lynch and Mr. Ronald White, to please come forward and join me for the presentation of the presidential chain of office. I gotta talk over here. By the authority vested in me by the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the Longwood University Board of Visitors, I will now bestow upon you, Taylor Reveley, the medallion, signifying the office of President of Longwood University. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present our newly inaugurated president, Taylor Reveley.
Madam Rector, Governor Baliles,
Secretary Fornash, Provost Perkins, Mayor Newman, Chairman Four, Mr. Spates, Mr. Guthridge, sage friend through all the many years to WTR2, WTR3, and WTR4, President Willett, President Howard, President Reveley, First Ladies Reveley, May, Quint, my family, my friends. We gather today in the heart of Virginia in the 5th century of this Commonwealth between customary rites of an election and Thanksgiving, celebrating and enduring liberty, even or perhaps especially in an era of gathering clouds in the longest enduring democracy of the world, a liberty rooted in the ideals of education. The heartfelt words of this afternoon make me hope even more deeply to be worthy of this trust. I can't help but think of those who can't be with us today, my dear friend Jane Maddox especially, and likewise of those watching from another shore, as they say in the proper liturgy. It is indeed a sentimental and joyful scene that is unfolding. And what is it like for a Virginian in the native line of the generations to be at the focus right now of such a moving and stately ceremony and moment? As you can tell, it is like a homecoming. I was christened in College Church, here in one of all of America's oldest two-college communities. My grandparents, as you have heard, began their tenure at President Howard's institution exactly 50 years ago in the fraught year of 1963. They are buried in graves adjoining to its Via Sacra. Longwood has been a part of my family's life continuously for more than a century, since indeed the time of my great-grandmother in the class of 1910 through the generations since, including my dear grandmother in the class of 1940. My cousins, my aunts, my cousin Patrick Eason is indeed a freshman this year in the class of 2017. And my grandmother's dear friend Evelyn McCorkle of the class of 1942 is here with us today. Given the momentum of family ties and patterns, you could have the impression that finding my way through the years to assuming the mantle of this role was graceful and easy. But too many of you who have seen my ungraceful moments are assembled here today for that. What has propelled me and driven me on this path is the example. So many examples of selfless hard work, dedication that I have enjoyed the privilege, blessing to see firsthand, learn from at home and in my career. That same spirit of dedication is also in manifold evidence with our faculty here, the guardians truly from age to age of Longwood's soul. For instance, seven of our current faculty members, Dr. Jordan, Dr. Harbour, Assistant Dean Folks, Professor Baldridge, Professor Edmondson, Professor Lust, Professor Weber, all with whom I am honored to serve. Indeed, all have served this institution since the 1970s, across 5 decades. And the incomparable Dr. May, of course, continues great deeds even in ostensible retirement. More than 24 new faculty members, I see some of you back there, joined our ranks freshly this year. And some of you, blessed with the same fortitude and passion, if you have the same kind of remarkable long tenures, may serve into the year 2050, 2050, and beyond. A link to the future. Just as our senior-most faculty today are a link with former days and the formative past. with the administration of President Willett, inaugurated here almost exactly 45 years ago in November 1968, who stewarded this institution with consideration and panache through the social dynamics of the day. Or with Dean Gordon Moss, whose courage in the face of the valley of segregation inspired reverberating change and taught students to look not just for how to have a career, but for how to live a life. Or, in turn, in deeper time, with my great-grandfather Thomas Eason, who my father mentioned, professor of biology here 100 years ago, honorary member of the class of 1913, who walked the halls we know, dreaming at times naturally of the future of higher education in this Commonwealth and nation. Even if a president rivals the historic and transformative tenure of Joseph Jarman, who led this institution for 44 years, from 1902 to 1946, in the time here of my grandparents and my great-grandparents, even if a president has that kind of remarkable tenure, he or she is at most a steward, preceded and succeeded by animating ranks of faculty, the best of whose tenures throughout our 175-year history run in multiples of decades as today. From the beginning, with faculty at the heart, this institution has held and been held to timeless ideals, while also in a sequence of metamorphoses rising to the call of new beginnings. In the earliest days, 175 years ago, many graduates of America's great colleges from the colonial era rallied to found this great institution, our university. And it has moved through transformation since. At this Virginia crossroads, Farmville, Hampden-Sydney, Prince Edward, Longwood, where it is truly profound to note the Civil War ended and civil rights began. Established as a pioneer in women's education, our then private institution became affiliated with the Methodist Church in its early decades, then became a state institution in the 1880s, a baccalaureate institution a generation later in the first half of the 20th century, coeducational a generation ago, then a university in name and scope with this new millennium, and today, as one of the 100 oldest colleges and universities in the country, one of the 50 oldest NCAA Division I schools, with 4,800 students from Virginia, the nation, and the world, with lifelong bonds with 32,000 alumni across the globe. Longwood stands within the forefront ranks of America's institutions of higher education, which truly are the envy of the world. These 175 years in Virginia and America against the backdrop of the millennia of world history have seen momentous junctures of national and global crisis, as well as momentous progress. Future centuries, I suspect, will see the decades ahead of us today as fulcrum years. The global community is knit together in arts and commerce, yet still divided in diplomacy and arms. We hold in our mortal hands still the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. Science has discovered new suns orbited by new and lonely planets with characteristics of our own earthly home, but at astronomical distance in the imponderable vastness of space. And still, our ethics and budgets here on Earth struggle to calculate the appropriate distribution of medicines and technology that now, just in present living memory, for the first time in humanity's advance, can indeed cure disease and save life. What would have had the air of magic or divinity even at the beginning of the 20th century. And as we move through these early decades of the 21st century, higher education itself, of course, is under duress as budgets tighten and questions over purpose are voiced. For generations, through the tides of history, Longwood's heritage has been as a teaching college, an institution famed for teaching teachers. Today, we are certainly that and more. We remain one of the best in this country at preparing teachers for that honorable and ancient profession, while also preparing our students for myriad other honorable professions, many of those modeled by our faculty, as well as by our splendid professional staff and administrators. Now, if our faculty are the guardians of Longwood's soul, our staff in full, professional and classified, are its dynamic force, so many with tenures also reaching decades in length. There is never a moment, any hour or day, at any time of any year, when some core or crescendo of our staff are not on sentinel watch in a hum of activity for the common good of our university. One moral imperative of our university community is to increase the compensation of our staff and faculty, stagnant through a stagnant decade nationally. As an institution, we have indeed grown in professional reach, building on teaching teachers. Our even deeper heritage, of course, is the liberal arts. At the founding in 1839, at a juncture before any professional career outside the home was meaningfully open to women, including teaching, our curriculum consisted of music, literature, mathematics, Latin, and Greek. Cicero, writing in a time of peril and growing crisis 2,000 years ago, coined the phrase liberal arts to mean the course of study befitting citizens in a republic, liberal having the same root as the word liberty. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Theodore Roosevelt, and Martin Luther King, among so many, have echoed that call for America. At the founding of this institution, as today, our foremost concern was preparing citizen leaders, which is to say people of broad mind, heedful of tradition, eager for progress. We cannot forget how progressive the idea of women's education itself was in the early decades of the 19th century. Of course, in the progress of our republic, 2 generations would pass before these citizens, our alumni, suffragists inspired by the lessons of the liberal arts, would themselves hold the franchise, and more than a century would pass before that franchise was widely shared, and Longwood itself was open to all of drive and ability. My family's history with this institution and with higher education laces through that time. The one advantage I myself perhaps have distinctive from my father and grandfather at their beginnings in this role is the innocence of youth. My own college days are still within the nearer reaches of memory and experience. In that regard, I would like to speak to our students today directly, who truly will bring fulfillment to future years, who carry our long hopes. You know that you ride a tide of history with fulcrum years ahead, and already without the innocence of generations before. In a time with a weather-beaten sense more like fall than summer, though in a country still rich in a way no array of figures can measure. You are the age now of our patron hero, Joan of Arc, at the height of her deeds. Among your first vivid memories at national scale was 9/11. News throughout all the days you know has broadcast the tribulations of terror and war. And in 2008, in the crush of adolescence, you saw the economy crash. And the Great Recession today can seem unending. You know indeed that we live in hard times with a future of vast possibility. With powerful desire, you want to be citizen leaders. You want the guidance, the wisdom of this ancient institution, ordained, maintained as it's been passed from generation to generation, leavened with new knowledge, the liberal arts of citizen leaders. You ask to learn history that will be a guide to the perennial inroads against liberty and to how America might find peace at home. You asked to learn new languages and literature as a guide to our common humanity, to learn the psychology that gives humanizing insight for equity and equality, to learn the dynamic and rhythms of the art that gives peace and challenge to the soul, the finance that unlocks our way from debt and accelerates enterprise, the science that fuels our hope to explore the stars and bring understanding, wonders, and solace throughout this world. You asked to learn the methods of education itself that will lift the generations to come as citizens of this country and citizens of the world. Longwood, in 3 centuries, is the alma mater of citizen leaders. Citizen leaders, you, here and now, joined with the generations running before you and those still yet to run ahead, are the coursing heart of Longwood. Residential liberal arts education is one of the great revolutionary forces in all of history. The 3rd oldest public university in this Commonwealth, governed and overseen by boards of great and good citizen leaders, loved and sustained by faithful and devoted alumni and friends, guarded and propelled by faculty and staff, focused intently on you, is at the cusp of such promise with unshakable purpose. The liberal arts of citizen leaders are for the challenges of free society, perennially the same, perpetually new, as when 2 millennia ago Cicero, in a republic forebear to our own, in an era of gathering clouds, first exhorted the liberal arts. Who is ready to meet the challenge? At 1 century and 3/4, Godspeed and thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. President, and congratulations, Longwood. In the words of the opening reflection today from W. Taylor Reveley II, read earlier by Dr. Ferguson, quote, "Make our present a past, which brings fulfillment to the future," end of quote. I think the future holds such promise. And for purposes of the present, this evening, this ceremony just begins the festivities, as I understand things. After the recessional from this ceremony, the new President Reveley will join students on Brock Commons in tolling the university's ancient bell, dating to the 1800s, one for each of Longwood's 26 presidents over its 175 years. As faculty, staff, delegates, and assembled guests proceed to the university's Blackwell Hall for an evening reception, the President and his First Lady will go with students from the tolling of the bell to begin a special inauguration dinner in Doral Dining Hall before joining the reception as well. And now, Dr. Pamela McDermott, Assistant Professor of Music, will lead us in the singing of the Alma Mater. The words are printed in your program. Following the singing, please remain at your seats during the recessional. And to conclude this inauguration ceremony, please rise and join in the singing of the Alma Mater.